Welcome to Mysteries to Die For. In this toe tag, I am TG Wolff, and I'm here with Jack, my piano player and producer. This is normally a podcast where we combine storytelling with original music to put you at the heart of murder, mystery, and mayhem. Today is a bonus episode that we call a toe tag. This is the first chapter from a fresh release in the mystery, crime, or thriller genre. Today's featured release is A Bad Bout of the Yips by Ken Harris. All right, everyone, you are in for a real treat today. Sit back, relax. Ken always gives us a very generous amount of entertainment here in his chapters. So we're going to jump right in with chapter 1. Here we go. Nice way to start a chapter, isn't it? Let's start over. Chapter 1. You've reached Rockfish and McGee, investigative specialist. At the tone, leave your name and message. Someone will get back to you. Beep. Johnny stared down at her phone, annoyed. She hung up the call after the office message ended and slid the phone into her messenger bag. With the proper receptionist comes a proper voicemail message. It's about time. Where the heck is everyone? Rockfish could be out and doing God knows what. But what about Lynn? Maybe she's in the can after an extra spicy lunch? Johnny laughed to herself. There were 1,001 reasons Lynn couldn't get to the phone. Don't go all Rockfish at once. The sun had slipped behind the clouds on the mid-Thursday afternoon when Johnny walked down the endless row of marble steps in front of the Baltimore County Government Building. She had submitted her final report regarding the former county employee, Harvey Henderson, who had been sitting at home on disability from a leg injury suffered while on the job. Henderson ran a bulldozer at the county landfill. That was until he fell off the equipment and reportedly injured his leg. Johnny loved this type of case. She conducted a couple of surveillances to find out Henderson's daily schedule, and then one quick final outing to snap a few pictures from a safe distance. Johnny followed Harvey and his mistress down to the town of Laurel and out to Rocky Gorge Reservoir, where the couple spent the day attempting to wakeboard. The day served as a twofer, and the future ex-Mrs. Henderson would gain the information needed to win her freedom without spending a dime. At the bottom of the steps, she pulled her phone back out and double-checked the time. 5 after 2 and still no notifications. Apparently, nothing of importance had transpired while she was in the meeting with the county commissioners. Her car was across the street in the paved lot, and she glanced up from the screen. Johnny felt flush and concern filled her brain. The green Kia Soul remained parked at the corner, blocking a hydrant. Her heart kicked up a notch. The damn thing hadn't moved in the hour and a half while I was inside. Jesus Christ, I don't need this shit today. Or any day. Fuck. 3 times since leaving her condo, the Kia coincidentally found itself parked nearby, always within eyesight. The odd-shaped vehicle and the color stood out. Amateur hour or someone who clearly wants me to notice. Johnny gritted her teeth, glanced both ways, and then kept her head down as she jogged across the street. She walked through the small lot until she found her Subaru and slid behind the wheel. She pulled around the exit gate and paid the attendant. A second later, the arm rose, but the car didn't move. Thoughts of Kia had Johnny lost deep in her mind. What would Rockfish do? Probably tell me to go on the offensive, concern be damned. Well, I'm definitely not going to pull sideways in front of the guy, jump out and confront him, that's for sure. People are crazy these days, and with my luck, I'd end up TikTok famous, #Karen's Gone Wild. Okay, let's see if I'm imagining things. Maybe give him a little I see you action instead. Johnny turned left onto Pennsylvania Ave and sped up. At the end of the block, when she was right alongside the Kia, she held her breath and cut the wheel. The Subaru hung a hard right onto Baltimore Ave and missed the Kia's left front fender by only a foot, enough to make him take notice. She straightened the wheel and exhaled. Her eyes shot to the rearview mirror. The Kia followed suit but was losing ground as she pressed on the accelerator. The car remained a block back when Johnny turned right again. Her eyes flickered from the front windshield to the rear view, expecting to see the key at any second, but it never appeared, or at least that she noticed. Her grip on the steering wheel grew tighter. Did I lose him? Was he some civilian who flew into road rage when I almost hit him, and then gave up once his blood pressure came down? No, I definitely saw that car multiple times today. Half an hour later, and back in Anne Arundel County, Johnny received an answer to her question. She spotted the Kia 2 cars back at a traffic light. All right, McGee, you aren't imagining things. Let's figure out who the driver is. Hey Siri, new note. What do you want it to say? Dark green Kia Soul, Maryland plate 555-RJ4K. Okay, I've created your note. It's called Dark Green Kia Soul, Maryland plate 555-RJ4K. I'll call Michelle at the DMV, Johnny thought, to run it as soon as I get back to the office. The favor may cost me a drink or an actual date, but it'll be worth knowing who he is. Hopefully the name will ring a bell. The last thing I need is a fresh surprise. Johnny was only a mile from the office, but took the Kia on a short sightseeing tour of Lithicum Heights. See exactly how dedicated the driver was to their mission. First stop was the Fairway Car Wash. Johnny got in line behind the others, and when it was her turn, she lined up the front tire to the guide and selected the Supreme. A tapping on the driver's side glass caught her attention. Hands off the wheel, ma'am. Johnny looked down. White knuckles. Her hand slid off the wheel and fell to her lap as the car jerked forward. She tried to relax and think calmly as the conveyor pulled her forward. Each stage coated the windshield with a different chemical and blocked the view. It's because you don't see him. Doesn't mean he's gone. Maybe he's hiding behind that IHOP. But with the simple line of sight as you exit the car wash, what's next? Mario's. She had dry cleaning that was overdue to be picked up. Big-ass empty lot there. Nowhere to hide, nowhere to street park. As she exited the car wash, the track gave way. Her hands turned to the wheel. Johnny waved off the man, wanting to finish towel drying the Subaru with an armful of hand towels. I'm good, no thank you, she mouthed as she cracked the window and slid out a $5 bill. Mario's was 4 lights down further on the road, and by the third red light, the Kia emerged from the background. Johnny could feel the sweat building on her lower back. A single drop formed on the side of her face. She lifted her arm and wiped away the drop with her sleeve. Mario's came up on the left, and Johnny put on her blinker. No need to attempt some big ruse at this point. 5 minutes later, she exited Mario's with her dry cleaning hung over her left shoulder and her iPhone held in her right hand, ready to capture the moment for posterity's sake. Johnny took the picture before the guy could raise his newspaper in a piss-poor effort to hide his identity. She unlocked the Subaru and hung the clothes on the back hook. She got in and slammed the door. A combination of the force and the noise caused her to jump. God damn it! WWRD. I should have done something proactive after the meeting back at the county building. Johnny reached into the center console. She chose the weapon of choice and sped walked to the Kia. Deep breath, deep breath. Look and act like you belong here. The man was blonde with very short hair, maybe balding. She couldn't tell with the slight window tint. When he spotted her approaching, the newspaper went back up. Johnny snapped another picture before sliding the phone back into her pocket. She tapped on the window. The early edition of the Baltimore Sun didn't move. She rapped her knuckles a second time, harder, louder. This time the paper came down and the man's eyebrows went up. He reached over and lowered the window, roughly 2 inches, before speaking. Can I help? The mace shot through the opening as if she was an Olympic crack shot. The creeper didn't see it coming, and Johnny didn't stick around to see the after effects. She could hear his screams, interlaced with every curse word in the book by the time she slid behind her wheel. Her death grip returned, and she rocketed out of Mario's parking lot without a clear destination in mind and less rubber on her tires. The Subaru ended up in the parking lot of the Wawa, a good half mile down the road. Johnny parked behind the convenience store. She pulled up the note she'd made earlier with the Kia's license plate and added to the notes. At the bottom of the note, she dictated the man's description in 2 sentences and returned her phone to the cup holder. Johnny exhaled and didn't move. How long had it been? 3 months? Maybe a little longer. Well, kid, it was an enjoyable ride. I look forward to the next extended period of calm. Maybe today I'm showed I'm not built for this line of work. Her mind went back to the night on Rockfish's front lawn. Port Beagle's gun, the sound of the shot, the smell of the burning cotton as the bullet passed through the material of her oversized sweatshirt. Fixing middle school laptops out of the garage doesn't sound so bad now. Granted, no one's watching a streaming network based on that show, but then again, I don't have to look over my shoulder every time I leave the goddamn house. Johnny stopped rubbing her hands and dropped her head into them. The tears flowed freely. She didn't remember how long she remained parked next to the dumpster, but when she felt like she could make it back to the office without having a complete emotional meltdown, she shifted into drive. Rockfish and Lynn sat in the open bullpen area of the office. He preferred to meet here as a group, as opposed to squeezing into his own private office. The partners recognized that the open area led to better collaboration and furnished it to accommodate those needs. A large sofa, 2 recliners, and a small conference table facing a retractable screen for presentations filled the space. The sofa was a sleeper for those late nights when a case or 2 mini Jamesons kept Rockfish there overnight. A partially stocked bar lined the wall behind the recliners, with a small refrigerator for cold drinks and DoorDash leftovers. It's not like her to be late, Lynn said. Rockfish noticed Lynn had looked down at her phone every couple of minutes since the meeting started. This after-hours meeting had become a reoccurring routine on Thursday evenings. All agreed. This time was best spent strategizing about pending cases and brainstorming to confirm no one had overlooked any minor details, no matter how small or routine. Also, Lynn would take the floor and discuss potential clients, upcoming meetings recently added to office calendar, and any administrative housekeeping issues. Rockfish didn't want to sound any more alarms, so he quietly worried about Johnny to himself. Wasn't like her at all. I wonder if she... He hadn't complete the thought when the front door swung open and in she walked. Johnny power walked past reception and appeared to be headed for the short back hallway that led to their private offices. An apology flew over her shoulder before she disappeared. "I'm so sorry, give me 5, I'll be right back out," Johnny said. Lynn stood up and walked over to the front door, locked it, flipped the sign, and pulled the shade. Rockfish raised his eyebrows and tilted his head. He gave Lynn a look when she returned to the couch. "Looks as if she's running on no sleep for the last 72 hours. Remind me again? Henderson was the guy at the dump, right? Nothing exciting there. Nothing to cause her to look like she parachuted into North Vietnam and single-handedly rescued half a dozen POWs. Rambo, Lynn said, right?" "Nice," Rockfish said. "You're getting better at this game. But seriously, that dump case was a piece of cake, right?" "Yeah," Lynn said, "wrapped with a big red bow, and she was dropping it off and answering questions the county commissioners might have had." "Just what I thought," Rockfish said, and stood to pour himself another drink. Red bow or not, something's under her skin. I'll cut Lynn loose after this and see what I can pry out of the kid. Johnny didn't emerge from her office for another 15 minutes. When she came out, she took up the seat next to Lynn on the couch. "You all good?" Rockfish said. "Totally. Let's do this," Johnny replied. Rockfish could see she had failed at putting up a good front, but he didn't let on. "Okay, I'll take the lead tonight," Rockfish said. "A few things off the top of my head on what is becoming an extremely vanilla caseload for the firm." Rockfish chose his words carefully and looked over at Johnny for any kind of reaction. Her head was down, buried in her laptop. He couldn't get a read on her reaction. "I think I've got everything I need to close out Stankiewicz," Rockfish said. "It's cases like this that I can work from the comfort of my $750 ergonomic office chair that's going to be the death of me. I know, they pay the bills. Lynn, I'm going to need you to book some more exciting potential client meetings." Still no reaction. He looked at Lynn and she shrugged. The only other point I have tonight is for everyone to remember Davenport is flying in a week from tomorrow on Friday, the 13th. Quite ominous, Rockfish said. Lynn, I know you were a big part of that case, but I don't want you to feel like you have to take a part in it, only if you're up to it. Rockfish stood up and stepped closer to Lynn on the couch. If any of it strikes a nerve or gets too hectic, don't feel the need to stick around. It's only a proposal meeting. Nothing on the second season is in stone. To be honest, I'd like it not to be and for us to continue doing good investigations, with some hot sauce sprinkled on from time to time. I'm looking at you, Hurricane Tesla. Thanks, Steve, Lynn said, trying my best. I'm all over Angel's visit. I made his reservation for the Sagamore Pentry Hotel. We paying for that? Rockfish said, hoping to get a rise out of his partner. It did not. That's like $8.50 a night. No, we're not paying, Lynn said. I only made the reservation. The studio is covering all the expenses for the trip. Rockfish nodded. It did not thrill him to deal with all the headaches of another season of reality TV would bring. But the money from Nicolita TV more than made up for the pain. He and Mac would be closer to docking their dreamboat behind the house. Floor's yours, Johnny. I mean, if you have anything. Johnny's eyes remained firmly on her laptop. It took a tap on the shoulder from Lynn to bring her back to the meeting space. Rockfish watched his partner. She put her laptop to the side and stood. My guess is she's ready to pitch something. She always stands when she does. This is what got her wound around the axle? Fuck, she's got as much to say in the cases as I do, so what's the need for the dramatics? Johnny paced back and forth between the large conference table and the more informal bullpen area and detailed a potential case brought to her by two friends and partners, Pilar and Cara. The women had purchased Chesapeake Mini Golf from their previous owners of 40 years with plans to refurbish the entire course and rechristen it Little Golf, Big Tees. Since they closed on the property, Johnny said, there have been vague online threats and some vandalism on their contractors' equipment and supplies. The cops claim it has nothing to do with anything more than the actions of bored kids and suggested purchasing some security cameras. Sounds like your friends think it's more, Rockfish said. Pilar didn't buy the local kick angle from the get-go, Johnny said. A company, Folsom Commercial Realty Group, actually outbid Cara and Pilar, but the previous owners of Chesapeake Mini Golf didn't accept the company's offer. They chose the lesser, if only for the thought that the course would continue to bring joy to the community and keep the memories of the past 40 years alive. Even after the settlement, Folsom continues to reach out to Pilar and Cara with alternating threats or way over-the-top offers. So in a nutshell, we're being asked to confirm Folsom is behind all of this and help these women make a case the police cannot drive away from? Rockfish looked across at Johnny. She still looks like absolute shit. But her pitch for the case was made like a pro. But this can't be what's bothering her. I also have a nagging feeling about those clients being her crunchy granola friends. Would they be able to meet our rates? Or is every cent tied up in the purchase and renovation of this mini golf money pit? I know what you're thinking, Steve, Johnny said. No, they can't meet our rates, but sometimes you need to give back to the community. These two are trying to salvage a historical landmark. This mini golf has served the families of Glen Burnie for almost 40 years. And if Angel's flying out here, that means Nicolita TV is going to throw a bunch of money at us. We can afford to take on one case because it's the right thing to do. Did I forget to mention that they're applying for a liquor license? Rockfish reached across Lynn with his fist and Johnny bumped it. The last bit of information? Well, that intrigued him. Lynn, I'll airdrop you their contact information, Johnny said. Set up an initial client meeting as soon as you can. Rockfish dismissed Lynn from the rest of the meeting and steered Johnny back to his office to see if she'd come clean on what was eating her early. By the looks of it, it still likely was. Once in Rockfish's office with the door shut, anxious Johnny returned. She stood against the wall to Rockfish's right instead of sitting in the chair directly opposite him. Spill it, McGee. It's just you and me here, he said. And she did. Johnny looked no better for finishing up, detailing the high-pitched squeals emanated from the Kia as the mace did its thing. Rockfish loved every minute of her decision-making. It took its toll on her, but goddamn, that made my day. So you gonna run the plate past your ex-paramour over at DMV, he asked, or are you all out of markers? If so, I can try Decker. I already left Michelle a message, she said. Hopefully, time has made the heart grow fonder, at least for this favor, Johnny said, and cracked a smile. That's my girl, Rockfish said. Now, do you think this guy really has it out for you? Or did you commit felony assault on some poor citizen? He was terrible, or really good at his job, Johnny said. I don't know which. Him, I can handle. I'm pretty sure of that. But it's the emotions all bubbling back to the surface, and them fucking with my decision-making ability that scares the ever-loving shit out of me. Johnny looked down at her shoes. When she looked up, Rockfish could tell what he thought was a tear. She continued to talk and move away from the wall. She ended up slouched in the chair. I mean, I see how every little thing makes Lynn jump, and I'm not sure my nerves are gonna last. It's like the first time as a kid you think you see the boogeyman, and then you see him everywhere after that. You seeing a therapist? Rockfish asked. Once a week still, she said. Thank God for copays. Good, Rockfish said. Keep it up. These things take time, and you got this. Remember, do as I say, not as I do. She laughed. No more playing WWRD, because I think it actually helped today. In moderation, McGee. Moderation. Johnny laughed, and Rockfish felt a little bit better for her. A few more baby steps, and I can stop worrying, he thought. Now sit up in that chair while I go make another drink. You want anything? No, she said. I'm going to cut it short, go soak in a tub until I'm a prune. Excellent call, he said. When I get back in a second, you're going to tell me all about this exotic mini golf course. Promise me all the drinks won't come with tiny umbrellas in them. Johnny smiled at Rockfish as he walked past. He knew two things. She was going to be okay, and they were going to lose money on this mini golf deal. Friday afternoon found Rockfish and Johnny headed out to meet her friends, Pilar Dampen and Kara Lipton. Rockfish offered to drive, and Johnny realized he wasn't completely sure she had recovered from yesterday's meltdown. His sports car, nicknamed Lana, with Rockfish behind the wheel, would have better odds at running from or chasing down Johnny's mystery man, depending on what the situation called for. Lana cruised up I-95 toward downtown Baltimore, and Johnny was giddy with excitement over what she hoped was Rockfish's outlandish reaction to their destination. The wild emotion of yesterday seemed far away to her, except for the times when she found her eyes darting in all directions, looking for a distraction to hopefully put the previous day's events behind her. The good news was that no uniformed police showed up at her condo or the office to question her about the mace incident, and Captain Decker didn't call Rockfish and give him an earful about a complaint filed by John Q. Citizen. Cut the shit, she thought. You're going to screw this whole thing up. Pilar and Kara are counting on you to steal the deal with Rockfish this afternoon. Focus. Can't do a damn thing to help them if your mind is looking for a boogeyman behind every corner. You're doing something here for a couple of good people. Opportunities such as this, in this profession, are few and far between. I need to make sure Rockfish buys in, and we put the full court press on whoever's doing this. Make a right here, Johnny said, and look for a place to park. We can walk in the rest of the way. With Lana Street parked and the meter fed, Johnny led Rockfish down the street through an old alley. Closer they got, the more she scanned his face for any type of reaction. But so far, Rockfish was stone-faced. She finally got the reaction she wanted when they stopped in front of an old building that resembled a speakeasy from the last century. Its current reincarnation was as Maxine's Waterfront Cafe, a favorite of Johnny and her friends. You stopped, Rockfish said. Is this? At that moment, she knew his eyes had locked in on the poster in the window. Maxine presents a tribute to John Waters, the early years. Really, Johnny? A freaking drag show at 3 o'clock in the goddamn afternoon? It's Friday, she said, and damn near close to happy hour. Same as one of your business meetings at the Bout's house, out by the airport if you ask me. Plus, you're the one who said you needed to get out of the office and didn't want to stand around talking shop at half-demolished mini golf course. Johnny smiled widely, winked, and reached for the door. Not to say I won't go in, Rockfish said, but most folks here have had the double jab. Trust me, Johnny said. Everyone is vaccinated inside. This crowd gets it. Inside the club was dark, despite the time of day. 18th century brick lined the walls. Johnny spotted Pilar and Cara at a table far away from the stage and silently thanked them, being closer to the door for when the EMTs needed a stretcher to carry Rockfish out the door after his heart attack. Steve, she said, I'd like you to meet Pilar. Pilar stood up and offered her hand across the table. Rockfish met her outstretched hand with an awkward fist bump. She dressed in jeans and a long-sleeve white button-up shirt. Her straight black hair flowed down past her shoulders and down her chest. And this is Cara. Cara saw the previous exchange and knew to throw rock. She was the polar opposite of her partner, dressed in a green flowery sundress with red hair and a shoulder-length bob and glasses. The four sat down and a server stopped to take drink orders. Pilar wasted no time in getting straight down to business before Johnny could help make the smooth transition from social chit-chat. Mr. Rockfish, I won't repeat anything Johnny has already told you, Pilar said. I'm not here to waste your time. Good to hear, because the quicker I'm back on my deck, the better, Rockfish said with a smile and a nod. Pilar then covered the couple's issues in more detail than Johnny had. Not to mention, we heard Folsom Commercial Realty Group also purchased the burned-out Applebee's next door. Whoever previously owned the Applebee's abandoned it and let the building go to hell. Supposedly, Folsom took ownership of that parcel a year before bidding on the Chesapeake Mini Golf. I can have our research specialist pull records from the tax assessor's office to see if Folsom is on some sort of land grab in the area, Johnny said. I'll have her prepare a map of the area with an overlay of properties Folsom has purchased. It might give us an idea of where they're headed with this. Of course, their bid about the land was... Boy, I apologize, listeners. Of course, their bid was about... Let's try that a third time. Of course, their bid was more about the land than preserving the course, Cara said. The Applebee's is a total eyesore, and they've done nothing with that plot since buying it. Part of me thinks they'll leave it up, rat infestation at all, to throw a monkey wrench into our grand reopening. Not to mention, Pilar said, we've already turned down 2 large offers from Folsom to sell. They followed the last one with a threat left on our windshield after a visit to the property, although we can't prove it was them. Johnny looked over at Rockfish to gauge his interest. He had his poker face on and she couldn't get a read. I need him to be on board here, she thought, not a casual yes that is followed by him always finding himself too busy to help. Time to go for those Rockfish heartstrings. There's a big old softy somewhere in there. I've seen it. Can you fill in, Steve, on some of the more cowardly bullshit that's been happening since you turned down the second offer? She asked. And Americano police thoughts on the matter? Yeah, thoughts, Cara said. Because talking is all those worthless motherfuckers have done. Defund the lot of them. Easy, Cara. That ain't the kind of thing that's going to get us anywhere, Pilar said. But to the point, she's right. Once we turned down the second offer and began demolishing the course, whoever it is, Folsom or some other hired goons, well, they increased the heat a few degrees. Pilar recounted the 2-part tale of common vandalism. The first encompassed the destruction and the theft of construction supplies and equipment, and the second avenue of attack sounded more akin to PSYOPs warfare. Tons of gay slurs spray painted on anything with a flat surface, male gay porn pictures printed off the internet and then strewn about the property, only to have the wind take it down the street to someone's grandma picked it up walking home from the store, you know where they directed that ire at. Johnny could hear the inflection in her friend's voice and noticed the napkin Pilar was holding. Her free hand tore small pieces every time with every syllable enunciated. To the right of her chair, it looked as if a tiny snowstorm had blown through and settled over the table. She shifted her eyes to Kara. Her head was down and her hands rested on the table, clenched tight. This is more than a business for these ladies. They need us. But what if Rockfish isn't sold? I can't do this alone. Not with the anxiety and the mental gymnastics I perform to get out of bed each morning. I have to. This is bigger than the boogeyman, I promise. Not to mention the flyers left on the doorsteps, residences, and businesses alike. Pilar said. They are the absolute worst, Kara said, lifting her head and staring Rockfish right in the eyes. They claim weekends at Little Golf Big T's will make the old Dinah Shore golf tournament look like an episode of the 700 Club. Dinah Shore? That old talk show broad from the 70s? Rockfish sounded and looked confused. I'll fill you in on the backstory later, Johnny interjected. I need Rockfish to stay on point. It's vile, the lies being spread, and like I mentioned yesterday, this part of community policing doesn't thrill the cops. I don't give a shit, because I don't have a fucking envelope for them on the weekly, Pilar said with a hefty dash of venom. They told us we should put up cameras, and if we catch someone on tape, then maybe they can do something, but of course, no promises. Well, I'm not sure if Johnny mentioned this or not, but I've got it in with the Baltimore Police Department, Rockfish said, and Johnny smiled. It actually thrilled her that he'd listened. If we can gather enough evidence and take it to them, perhaps they can lean on Anne Arundel County enough to get them off their asses, or sell the feds on a civil rights violation. That sounds expensive, Pilar said. Like money we don't have, since we also have a long list of improvements needed before we can even apply for our liquor license. Yeah, Johnny mentioned that, Rockfish said. She also mentioned us possibly working on this case, gratis. It's true, with our books in the shape they're in now, Kara said. We can't afford your rates or daily expenses. We're relying on humanity with this one, and Johnny said you might be open to barter? We're not tucking chickens, right? Rockfish asked. No, Mr. Rockfish, no poultry, Pilar added. I was thinking more like Little Golf Big T's lifetime pass with negotiable discount on adult beverages? And here we are. Johnny held her breath. You mean I can swing a putter with a beer in my free hand? With my date anxiously looks at her watch. There's some mighty fine evening entertainment there, Rockfish said. Hell, I could even swap out the conference table for client meetings underneath the big windmill. This idea might have legs. Rockfish laughed aloud and reached for his glass. Ladies, you knew before dragging me here I wouldn't go against Johnny's recommendation. We'll have to change up our normal client agreement paperwork, but I think we're good here. Cheers. 4 glasses met in the air above the center of the table as a divine impersonator took the stage. See, that wasn't so bad. You survived, right? Johnny said. Gloria Gaynor would be proud, McGee, Rockfish said as they left Maxine's and headed for the car. For the love of God, he thought, some of those performances were brutal. Not as bad as the time she made me watch Lifetime Christmas movies as an unofficial Christmas party, but damn close. I'm going to need to go home, dig out Rob Zombie's Past, Present, and Future on vinyl, and cleanse my palate. And speaking of surviving, she said, why don't you toss me that key fob and let me make sure we both get back to the office in one piece? Rockfish complied with his partner's order and crossed himself as he slid into Lana's passenger seat. One piece of advice before you start her, Hemi? Shoot. Little miniature deckers will be out in force until we cross the county line. Second to last Friday of the month, quotas are coming due, he said. Right-hand lane, Johnny said, and speed limits are my jam. Don't you worry. Old passenger seat habits die hard. Rockfish had Johnny adjust the side view mirror for him, and he opened the one on the visor. He made a buzzed mental snapshot of the cars he could see. He watched as Johnny repeated the process from her seat and immediately lowered the volume on the radio to 0. He's here. Oh, for fuck's sake. Maceface? Rockfish asked. I'd bet your life on the next Nicolita TV direct deposit on it, Johnny said. Silver Toyota across the street, facing the wrong way. What the hell? Rockfish said. What is with this guy, he thought. Street parked and facing against traffic? Rockfish looked around again. Probably the best he could do and still monitor us. Okay, he said, tell you what. We've done this before on your old Scion when the Jeep forced us off the road in the Pine Barrens. How could I forget? It was the day we met. Johnny couldn't help but smirk. She thinks she's being funny, trying to laugh it off, but it sure ain't coming off that way. But the tone of her voice, the grip on the steering wheel, and the constant revving of the engine paints is a different picture. Fuck, I should have stopped drinking during the scene from Hairspray. You knew she wasn't making this up yesterday. Exactly like that time. I direct, you execute, Rockfish said. Better results this time, I promise. Step 1, stop pressing on the gas pedal. Don't tease Lana, or she won't be there for you when you need it. Nothing, he said, not a word, her eyes glued to that damn side mirror. Fine, let's start the play. Step 2, Rockfish said. Wait until someone's coming at us in the other lane. Wait until you think they're too close, then gun the engine and cut the wheel as hard as you can to the left. If you need me to give you a countdown, I'll do it. That clown won't expect us to make a U-turn. Lana sat on the side of the road with a handful of cars coming at her and went. Each of Rockfish's countdown went unheeded. He surprised himself with how cool he remained, as Lana never moved an inch each time he landed on go. Okay, Johnny, you still with me? Yes, she said. Good, because you're going to do it this time. Then stick to the right lane and the speed limit. I don't care if he rams us from behind. Don't deviate from the plan. Unless I tell you, then you deviate like a motherfucker. Rockfish reached over and gave her thigh a slight shake. The gesture was the best he could do at the moment. 3 minutes later, he said go in a quieter, calmer tone, gave her leg the same squeeze, and the torque threw him against the side passenger door. Seatbelt, asshole. Let's try to make it through this alive. The screeches from both Lana's tires as she gained traction and the oncoming car's brakes filled the air. Johnny steered into the skid like a pro and straightened Lana out before pressing down further on the gas. They both shot at the look of surprise on May's faces as they passed alongside, with Rockfish adding a one-finger salute for good measure. It was him. I'm sure of it, Johnny said. Okay, Rockfish said, eyes forward. Let me worry about what he's doing, which is following us at the moment. Remember, right lane, safe speed, and listen to me. Rockfish's memory went back to that late afternoon in Pine Barrens. He hoped the defensive driving lessons he had since paid for would come into play. Add Johnny's skills to Lana's muscle, and he had a better feeling about this time if May's face turned it up a notch. You holding up okay? Rockfish asked. His partner was as white as a ghost and held on the steering wheel as if her life depended on it. Can't afford for her to break down now, he thought. She's got to hold it together until we're stopped somewhere, in one piece. Maybe I need to give her a refresher course. His eyes darted to the side mirror and to the one at the visor and back. The Toyota had made the turn, but seemed content to hang back and avoid any confrontation. You're doing good, Kid, he said. He's back there, but keeping his distance. I bet he thinks you reloaded your bear spray. The laugh he didn't expect didn't come, nor did any acknowledgement, and that ratcheted up the worry in his gut. When Johnny merged onto I-95 South, the pressure on that meter lessened as she stayed in the right-hand lane and kept it under 65. Okay, he thought, despite being unresponsive, she's listening. We're not heading back to her place or the office, that's for damn sure. Think, Rockfish. Where do you want this to play out? He glanced back, then Toyota continued to follow suit, albeit further than when he was on the side streets of Baltimore. He's not on our ass. Perhaps he really is out there only to scare us? But from fucking what? Our cases are as goddamn boring as you can get lately. We're going to have to figure out who this clown is and why he's been up her ass for the past 2 days. All right, Johnny. I'm going to assume you're still listening because you're good at that. Do you remember Saburo Yamamoto, the guy with the grocery store on Deering in Morrow Park? He saved our ass in the slip and fall lawsuit? Rockfish looked over and Johnny nodded but kept quiet. Better than nothing. I want you to take the next exit. I need you to do a little shopping at Yamamoto's Asian grocery. You need anything? She shook her head and put her blinker on. Way too early. He's not on our ass, but no need to telegraph for the next mile that we're turning, he thought. Fuck, I can't say that. One wrong negative thing and she falls apart. The tears will flow and then she can't see. Her death grip on the wheel loosens and I'll be trying to steer this goddamn thing from the passenger seat. If I can get her parked in safely into the store, I can deal with the guy. Rockfish noticed the Toyota had closed the gap somewhat once they left the interstate. He spotted the sign for Yamamoto's up on the right and pointed it out to Johnny. Pull into a spot as close to the front doors as you can, he said, and walk with me inside. Johnny made the right turn, pulled into the lot, and aimed straight for a handicap space. The spot was assigned to Rockfish that while she looked scared, deep inside, it was worse than he thought. The kid never breaks the law. Ever. He jumped out of the car, ran around the front of Lana, and opened the driver's side door. Let's go, he said. You'll be safe inside. As he held the door open and onto her arm, he practically pulled her through the front door. The store was the size of an average convenience store. 3 well-stocked aisles comprised most of the space, with the butcher shop running the length of the left wall. Sabaro manned the store's only register at the front of the small grocery and emphatically waved to Rockfish as they entered the store. He was a small, elderly man with the beginnings of osteoporosis, which caused him to stand bent over. He dressed in his standard uniform, Rockfish had never seen him deviate from, of a white paper hat with matching t-shirt and apron. Hey, Sabaro, sounds strange, but do me a favor, lock that front door and keep an eye on Johnny for me. I'm dealing with a bit of trouble. I'll explain in a sec, Rockfish said, as he made a beeline for the rear of the store and cruised through the hanging plastic separating the back area from the 3 aisles. I need something to frickin' use other than my fist. I got no idea what that guy is packing, and the last thing I want to do is bring a soba noodle to a knife fight. Rockfish hectically looked around the area, the top boxes and work area. He spotted what looked to be a workbench and grabbed a box cutter and a small crowbar from it and threw open the back door. He made his way around to the left side of the store, hugging the wall. The man with the plan had none. He was operating fully on adrenaline and emotion. Not my finest hour, he thought. Rockfish stopped and leaned around the front corner of the store. He spotted the Toyota parked directly behind Lana in the next row. Maceface was staring at the front door, and at this moment, Rockfish chose violence. He looped around the parking lot to come at the car from behind. Guessing correctly, the man was not checking his rear view. Rockfish approached the left rear view tire and released the box cutter. The blade punctured the sidewall close to the tread, and the sound of escaping air was music to his ears. Maceface was still oblivious to what was going on. Rockfish walked up to the driver's side window and tapped the glass with the box cutter. The man turned his head and jumped at the same time, but he settled back in and gave Rockfish the finger. Typical mousy little man. Fears turn to bravado real quick when he remembers the thick sheet of glass separating us. Come on, man, I want to talk. I don't have any mace, Rockfish said. He held up the box cutter, let it slip from his grip, and fall to the asphalt. The crowbar remained in his right hand, tight against his side and out of sight. Maceface assumed not rolling down the window meant he was safe. Somewhere in the back of Rockfish's mind, the narrator spoke. He was, in fact, not safe. Rockfish raised the crowbar and brought it down against the glass. It cracked and sagged heavily, but it didn't break. He looked at the spiderwood pattern for a second and tried to figure out what he expected to gain from smashing the window. Those few seconds cost him as the passenger door flew open. By the time his attention moved from the cracked glass, the man had crawled across the center console and out the passenger door. Maceface was now 10 yards away and sprinting. Rockfish thought the better of following. He had more pressing concerns. He walked around and leaned in through the open door and grabbed the keys out of the ignition. Enterprise rent-a-car, he thought. Probably the same for yesterday's Kia. Oh, and what's this in the back seat? A Folsom Commercial Realty Group lanyard laid on the back seat. Thank God for company swag. Attached to the lanyard was a key card, but Rockfish knew someone would deactivate it long before he could get a chance to figure out what door it opened. Rockfish walked back into Yamamoto's front door, tapped on the glass with the crowbar. Sabaro ran over and unlocked it. Rockfish patted him on the shoulder and gave his former client a hearty thank you. Then he spotted Johnny squatting against the end-cap display of seaweed. Tears raced down her face. The afternoon had been too much on her, too soon after the poor beagle mess. Rockfish bent down alongside of her, ignoring the cracking in his knees, and he wrapped his arms around her. "Never doubt my belief in you," he said. "It's just that sometimes I need a little extra convincing." Well, there we go. That is just the first chapter, and yeah, it only gets better from there. So, A Bad Bout of the Yips was released on March 9th, 2023 from Black Rose Publishing. It is available from all online retailers. A little about Ken Harris. So he's retired from the FBI after 32 years as a cybersecurity executive. With over 3 decades of writing intelligence products for senior government officials, Ken provides unique perspectives on the conventional fast-paced crime thriller. I would say that is an understatement, but that is my opinion. He is the author of From the Case Files of Steve Rockfish series. He spends his day with his wife, Nicolita, and the 2 Labradors, Shady and Chalupa Batman. Evenings are spent playing Walkabout Mini Golf and cheering on Philadelphia sports. Ken firmly believes Pink Floyd, Irish whiskey, and Montecristo cigars are the only muses necessary. He is a native of New Jersey and currently resides in Northern Virginia. All right, here's my review. So, A Bad Bout of the Yips is a PI mystery. I know that's a shocker to all of you that just heard this. Not. Partners Steve Rockfish and Johnny McGee are neck deep in the kind of trouble that puts you 6 feet under. First, there is the case. Their clients are being threatened and their property burned to incentivize them to sell their putt-putt business. Then there is the next streaming show. Angel is coming to talk, and so is his money. And finally, there's the mob. Arnetta Provolone may be under house arrest, but Johnny's the one who's going to be locked down. Now, you didn't get a little taste of that, but yeah, that's a big part of the story. Nothing goes right in the story for Rockfish and McGee. Not a single damn thing. So the bottom line, A Bad Bout of the Yips is for you if you like stubborn private investigators with smart mouths and ideas that are so bad that they are absolutely great. The strengths of the story. It's a hard call on whether the characters, the fast-paced storytelling style, or the dynamic storylines are the true starring feature. Together, they certainly hit the trifecta of PI series. There's enough humor and irreverence to keep Yips from becoming too heavy. From becoming too heavy, even though the ruthlessness of the mob characters, well, at least it had me worried for like everybody. Where the story fell short, the only place I felt that it fell short was the idea that Siri actually listened to Johnny the first time that Johnny asked her to make a note, and she didn't have to do it like 3 times and then risk a health and safety moment by actually fumbling with her phone. No, mostly teasing. Ken is truly living in a fantasy world if he thinks it works that well. Beyond that, there isn't a place the story fell short. It is the third in a continuing story, and in my opinion, it is best enjoyed after reading the previous installments. Don't think of that as a gotta do, think of it as a get to do. And so that is it for this toe tag. Go on out, read A Bad Bout of the Yips by Ken Harris, share it with your friends, write a review so that other people can find this awesome book. Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you next week with our regular episode of Mysteries to Die For.